Alright, so in this video we're going to take a look at the new feats we get in the 1D&D Unearthed Arcana playtest called Expert Classes, and this is one that I'm really excited about. I've made videos on the 3 classes and subclasses we got in this playtest as well, but the feats is obviously, for me at least, a huge thing because it tells us so much about the direction that they're going, and I've seen some interesting stuff so far. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down the list of feats over here for the 1D&D playtest, and then we are going to compare them to the original 5e feats. Feats, not feasts. That'd be good too. Anyway, if you like videos such as this one, you can subscribe to the channel down below, and you can also check out the playlist for 1D&D content where I go over all of the new stuff in these playtest documents. So without further ado, let's jump into the feats for 1D&D. So the first thing I want to note here is that we get a bit of a description up here where every feat has a level that you're required to have. We knew that from the first playtest, but it's still there. That there are now level requirements on feats. I like that. I think it's nice to sort of divide feats into stronger feats that you shouldn't be able to get from level 1. There are also prerequisites. We had that before as well. And then there's this repeatable thingy where some feats can be repeated, taken multiple times, basically. We are also told that you will have some epic boon feats that are going to come in at 20 level. That's something we saw for each of the characters, that they got feats at 20 level, and these were epic boon feats, so very excited to see those. But yeah, without further ado, let's just jump into it, and the first feat we get is the ability score improvement feat that you can take at 4th level, and this just lets you increase your ability scores like the ASI we know from 5e, and this is the way they're going to do it now. You're not going to get an ASI at 4th, 8th, 12th, 16th, and 19th level. You're now going to get feats, and then you can choose an ACI when you do so. So that's nice. It's not a change that's going to do anything really except semantics and maybe your understanding of how an ASI is. So instead of ASI being standard choice, feat is now standard choice, and you can choose to make that an ASI, and that may change what some people do when they gain a feat, make it more likely that they actually take a feat. I think that's the intention at least. Actor increases your charisma score by 1, did so before. You have advantage on some deception checks, sure, did that before, and now you can also mimic some stuff. Not going to go too deep into the details because, yeah, Actor, I don't get why this is a 4th level feat, probably because it has this ability score increase, maybe, and they don't want that for 1st level feats. Not very interesting, still not. It has some use cases, but it's very hard to see this being significantly better than just having +2 to charisma, for example. So I'm not very impressed with what they've done with the actor feat. It's fun, but it's still something that I would rather have a character have at 1st level, like a background feat. Strip away the charisma thing and give it like a ribbon feature, sort of a background thing. Yeah, that's my opinion. So athlete still increases your strength or dexterity, but now also maybe your constitution score, so that's nice. You gain a climb speed equal to your speed that was the same before. You're prone, you can get up to 5 feet of movement. You have advantages and ability check you make for the jump action, so athlete stays the same. It wasn't a very powerful or often used feat before, and it's not going to be now either. We don't have alert here because we got that in the first playtest, so we are getting down to Charger. Charger now increases your strength or dexterity score. It didn't do that before. Very nice buff for the Charger feat, which was terrible before. So that's nice. Improved dash. When you take the dash action, your speed increases by 10 feet with that action. Not very useful. Edge cases, maybe. If you move at least 10 feet in a straight line immediately before hitting your attack, you choose one of the following effects, 1d8 plus bonus damage, or push the target 10 feet. Okay, so it's no longer bonus action, but you don't get to make a whole melee attack, basically. So you move, make an attack with your attack action, and then you deal extra damage or push the foe. So it's been retooled a bit, but I can see some uses for this. I think this Charger feat is actually decent now. It's actually something that you might take on some builds. So I think that's nice. It's definitely better than before, in my opinion. Crossbow expert, everyone's favorite gimpy feat from 5e, where you had to take it if you're a ranged character because you got some really cool stuff for it, especially the ability to sort of use hand crossbows, and then you would mix that with your sharpshooter feat and you'd go all nuts. Probably they've done something to change this. Let's see. You ignore the loading property. Yes, you can fire into melee with crossbows, mind you, not all of them. So no more warlocks with the crossbow expert feat firing into Milo, for example. When you make the extra attack of the light weapon property, you can add your ability modifier to damage if the attack is with a crossbow. Okay. So the bonus action attack is gone, but that's because two-weapon fighting has been folded together in one action. We'll go through that when we get to the rules glossary. So you're still going to be able to dual wield crossbows, and it would seem that every character can do that. That's not limited to this one. So when you ignore the loading property, so with the new two-weapon fighting rules, if we assume that the light crossbow or the hand crossbow is a light weapon, so you would be able to dual wield it anyway, then the only thing this does is allow you to deal extra damage on the offhand attack, fire into melee, which is good, of course, and then ignore this loading property, so you can take multiple crossbow attacks in the same turn, but you still have to have one hand free to do that. Yeah, so I have a hard time telling if this is going to be better or worse, because if you can already dual wield crossbows as the rules are, then this feat obviously does a lot less, but you're still getting the ability to fire into melee. You get to ignore the loading property, which would be because of the time required, you can fire only one you're using. Okay. So yeah, it would basically just allow you to dual wield crossbows for one turn or have a sword and a crossbow, and then yeah, it's kind of weird, and I'm not entirely sure where that leaves the crossbow expert and the crossbow expert meta. If you know that, please leave a comment down below, and I'd be happy to see what you think about it. Then we have the defensive duelist. So before, the defensive duelist simply allowed you to, when using a finesse weapon, you could add your proficiency bonus modifier as a reaction, and it does the same now, except that it also gives you a dexterity boost. So that's nice, because before, defensive duelist was simply not strong enough. With the addition of +1 to dexterity, it becomes a lot more viable, in my opinion. Then we have dual wielder, which now also gives strength to dexterity, and when you hold a weapon with a light property, blah, blah, you can treat a non-light weapon in your other hand as if it had the light property, provided that weapon lacks the two-handed property. So you still have to have a light property weapon in one hand and then a non-light weapon in your other hand. So now you can have a rapier and a sword. I believe before that you can use two-weapon fighting even when the one-handed melee weapons you're wielding aren't light. So instead of being able to wield two long swords, for example, you can now wield one long sword and a sword. So that's a difference there. They make sure to tell you that you can't have two-handed property, which is probably a good thing to specify. I don't think anyone could go around dual wielding great swords before, but it's good to get that in writing properly. Then we have quick draw. You can draw stow two weapons that lack the two-handed property when you would normally be able to draw stow only one. But that should just be included in the basic rules. It's such a silly thing D&D has, where you think that drawing two weapons is a lot slower than drawing a single weapon. So I'd rather they not have that in feat. Even so, it's important to note here that we are not getting the +1 bonus to AC. We are not getting the add your modifier to the damage, because that's a fighting style, I'd assume. So overall, more or less the same, probably maybe a bit weaker. 1 AC was really good, and being able to wield two long swords, for example, was also nice, but it's not a significant change, I think. I think it's fine the way they've changed this. So durable comes in, increase your constitution score by 1 to a maximum of 20, so that's nice. It had that before as well. Your advantage on death saving throws makes sense. I was thinking, doesn't it always do that? But I think that was a house rule we have at my table, that it adds advantage to death saving throws, so it's nice they put that in there. And now you can use a bonus action to roll your hit dice in combat. You don't get to add your constitution modifier here, so that could be slightly worse than using it during a short rest, but it's a nice feature and probably more useful than what it was before. So yeah, a bit better. I'd say durable is now something that can compete with a lot of other feats. Then we have the Elemental Adept, which allows you to raise an spellcasting ability score. You can repeat it if you pick different damage types. I think it's nice that it adds an ability score. It really makes it a lot better. And then we have Energy Mastery, where you choose Acid, Cold, Fire, Lightning, or Thunder. Same spells. You can ignore resistance. Yes, that's the same. And when you roll a spell, you can treat any roll of a die as 2. Yeah. So unchanged, except that you get a +1 to an ability score, which makes it obviously a lot better. Now we come to the epic boons. Great stuff. Nothing to compare it to over on the left. So we're just going to look at the epic boons here. For the experts or warriors, we get when you miss with a immediate attack, you can hit instead. Once you use the benefit, you can't use it again until you roll initiative. So basically every combat. That's a good feature. Is it epic? I don't know. It's a single hit every combat. Yeah, it's a good feat, I'd say. I don't know if I feel the epicness of it, but it's good. Then we have Epic Boon of Dimensional Travel. That sounds crazy. Expert or Mage Group. You can cast a mystic spell without expending a spell slot. Once you use this benefit, you... All right. Yeah, so the Epic Boon of Dimensional Travel means you can mystic step once per combat. Okay, yeah, so initiative, short rest, or long rest. All right, so that's the least epic boon I could imagine, probably. I don't know. Wow. Yeah. So Mystic Spell is a second level spell, and you can cast it now once per combat. So maybe if you're lucky, like 4, 5, 6 times a day. That's, I would say, the high end for combats in a day. So basically, proficiency per long rest would be the same. A lot of races get that. Yeah. I'm not impressed with the epic boon of dimensional travel. Can't see a lot of people picking that one up. Wow. Epic boon of energy resistance. You gain resistance to one of the following damage types. Whenever you finish short rest, you can meditate and change. Okay, so this isn't more epic boon. Energy resistance, resistance to damage that you can actually change. Not all types of damage, obviously, but acid, cold, fire, lightning, necrotic, poison, psychic, radiant, or thunder. So that's everything, I think, except piercing, bludgeoning, slashing, and force damage. Yeah. That's more epic than Misty Stepping once per combat, I'd say. Your hit point maximum increases by 40. In addition, whenever you regain hit points, you regain additional hit points equal to your constitution modifier. You can regain these additional hit points no more than once per round. Again, wow. 40 hit points, extra hit points regained every time you are healed. Compared to the epic boon of dimensional travel, I'd say the epic boon of fortitude is probably going to get picked up a bit more. Put that on your wizard, you can effectively add something like 25% more hit points to a wizard at 20 level. Yeah, that's a sick feature. Can you imagine your barbarians going around and not only having a 24 constitution with a d12 hit die, and then also adding in the epic boon of fortitude when they get 12-20? That is a beefy barbarian. Epic boon of irresistible offense. The damage you deal always ignores resistance. So that's an expert or warrior feat. That's good. With magic weapons, the effect is probably smaller because that usually ignores basically every magic resistance in the game. There are some creatures that have resistance even to magical weapons. So I'm not sure this is too great unless they also change how many monsters are resistant to magical weapons, which they obviously could. So we'll have to see the monsters to sort of know if this is worth it. Epic boon of luck. Immediately after you roll a d20 for a d20 test, you can roll a d10 and add the number rolled to the test. Once you use the bench, you can... So compare that to the luck feat that you can take at level 1. You can now add a d20. Not too impressive, I'd say. I could be wrong, but it doesn't seem too strong to be able to add a d20 once per combat. Just like the epic boon of combat prowess, it's not hugely beneficial, I'd say. It's not something that'll feel really epic to use, in my opinion. Epic boon of the Night Spirit. You can become invisible as an action. You remain invisible until immediately after you take an action or a reaction. Yeah, so that's basically the warlocks, I think it was. They had an invocation that did this. So yeah, that's fine. Epic boon of Peerless Aim. If you make a ranged attack against a target in range of miss, you can cause the attack to hit instead. Once you use a pen, you can. So that's Expert of Warrior. How is that different from Epic boon of Combat Prowess? It's the same feature, worded slightly differently. Yeah. I don't know. I don't see why this is not just the same feat for me. Like, why would I have to pick up 2 different feats? Because it's ranged? Yeah, I don't know. Same feat. You can use a bonus action to regain a number of hit points equal to half your hit point maximum. Once you use the benefit, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. In addition, you succeed every death saving throw that isn't a roll of 1. Okay. So you can regain half your hit point maximum as a bonus action. And that's in the same playtest as Epic Boon of Dimensional Travel or... wow. Yeah. Okay. So this feat is obviously insane. You can... equal to half. So if you're a barbarian with 300 hit points, you're going to use this to as a bonus action to regain 150 hit points. Okay. Yeah, so this is obviously a very, very good feat for basically any character, especially characters that have a lot of hit points. Epic Boon of Skill Proficiency, you gain proficiency in all skills. Okay, so... wow. These Epic Boons are just all over the place in terms of power level. This is... This isn't even fun. You're just proficient in everything. Okay. I don't know. This kind of rubs me the wrong way because... why? How do you become proficient in everything? And why? And isn't that just going to steal the thunder from every other character at the table? I don't know. Yeah, not a huge fan of this, but it's obviously good outside combat. Your speed increases by 30 feet. Again, why would I ever want to miss this step once per combat when I could just increase my speed by 30 feet? Yeah, I know, opportunity attacks, blah, blah. Still, this is obviously 1,000 times better. Epic Boon of Undetectability. You can't be seen or heard by any means magical while you are hidden. Okay, so that's also obviously strong on a ranger and a rogue. Though I'd say, I think we'll get to the hiding stuff in the glossary overview, but as far as I know, the rogue is pretty undetectable already with expertise, so maybe not a huge thing here. Epic Boon of the Unfettered. As a bonus action, you can take the Disengage action, which also ends the grappled and the restraint condition on you. So you can basically get free from any grapple and restraint condition as a bonus action. And Disengage. That's also powerful. Not hugely so for experts, so you're a rogue, you already have Disengage as a bonus action, you just end the grapple restraint. Not that powerful. So yeah, these Epic Boons are really all over the place, ranging from basically unusable. This wouldn't even be good feat, I think, at first level. Can't say enough how bad that feat is. And then ranging to stuff that is crazy, like Epic Boon of Recovery. So yeah, we're all over the place for those ones. Interesting. I like that they're trying to do this stuff. I would have probably wanted them to maybe balance it a bit better for the playtest here. It seems a bit... a bit rough. Okay, moving on, we have fighting styles. So fighting styles are now feats. I'm happy to see this. That's what I do in my own games already. So yeah, instead of having fighting styles, I just give combat classes a feat, and then I have the fighting styles as feats. So instead of calling it fighting style, I'd probably just have them as feats and then give the fighter a feat at second level, because these are first level feats, so you wouldn't be able to pick up anything else. But yeah, that's semantics. Basically, we have fighting styles now as feats, and archery does the same. +2 bonus to attack rolls. I'm not too happy with that because I think it's the most powerful of the fighting styles from a pure numbers standpoint, and I always wanted to switch around archery and dueling so you deal more damage with archery and hit more with dueling. I think that's just more balanced. But yeah. Defense, +1 to bonus to armor class, the same. We have dueling, which is +2 damage. Yes, the same. Great weapon fighting. It is the same. Protection. Now you use a reaction to interpose your shield and impose a -2 penalty on the attack roll, potentially. Okay. So did they just make it worse? Okay, so instead of imposing disadvantage, the fighting style protection now imposes a -2 penalty on the attack roll, which I think is worse in most cases. Obviously, before, if the character is already hitting with disadvantage, you're not going to do a whole lot with your protecting fighting style. But -2, that's a bit rough. I think this feat this fighting style has gotten worse compared to protection. And then we have 2 weapon fighting, which makes the extra attack alive when you can add your ability modifier to the damage of the extra attack, which is the same. So yeah, not a lot of change here, except protection has maybe gotten a bit worse, which I'm not a huge fan of necessarily. Back to feats, we now have Grappler, which increases your strength or dexterity score, as it didn't do before. You have advantage on attack rolls against a creature grappled by you, so that's the same as before. You aren't slow when you move a creature, that's also new, so that's good. If you want to move creatures around when you're grappling them, of course, not necessarily something you want to do a lot. And when you hit a creature with an unarmed strike pass attack actions, you can deal damage to the target and also grapple it. You can use this benefit only once per turn, whereas before you could pin a creature grappled by you. To do so, make another grapple. It's hard to say. There's some wonky grapple builds that have now gotten a lot worse, but there's also something to say for this being a more cleaner approach that actually makes grappling people always beneficial, even if you aren't a dedicated pin and restrain kind of grappler. So I can see this working out. I think it's an overall good enough feat if you want to be that grappling type of character. Great Weapon Master. So Great Weapon Master, for those who don't know, I think everyone kind of knows at this point, was the bread and butter of any melee character. You want a Great Weapon Master basically so you can add that plus 10 to the attack's damage by taking a -5 penalty. So it's interesting to see what they've done here. It's not only a warrior feat, it's now proficiency with any martial weapon. Why not just make it a warrior feat? For me, that's a bit weird because this probably doesn't fit. Maybe it's so the paladin can still take it. Yeah, that makes sense. Anyways, increase your strength score by 1 to a maximum of 20. So it didn't do that before. Cleave, when you score a critical hit, you can make one attack with the same weapon as a bonus action. That is the same. And then you have Heavy Weapon Mastery. When you hit with a heavy weapon on your turn, as the attack action, you can deal extra damage equal to your proficiency bonus. So this is just compared to this. All Great Weapon Master builds, they are dead now because this is not nearly as good. And it can only be applied once per turn. I think I'm not a fan of this. I love Cleave still. I love that they're giving strength to sort of make up for it. So I think those two make sense. What I would probably want instead is that you can add half again your strength modifier to heavy weapon attacks, for example. Round it down. Even round it up, I don't care. Something like 1 to 3 extra damage per attack that you add, because that would just make heavy weapons feel more heavy and feel like rah. And it sort of compares to 2-weapon fighting, I think, overall through the levels. Instead of this where you have to apply it once per turn, you have to remember to do it, and then it's a little +3, 4, 5, whatever your proficiency bonus is. I think I'd rather want something flat that was just applied all the time. But otherwise, it's nice that they fixed their feat. I really hope they buff the martial classes in some other way, because taking away this feat is nice in the way that it doesn't force those characters to take this feat, but it also leaves them a lot less powerful than they were before. Then we have Heavily Armored, which is increasing your Constitution and Strength score, so now you can get Constitution instead as well, that's good. And then you gain Heavy Armor Training, so that's fine. You need Medium Armor Training to have it, so that makes sense. Then we have Heavy Armor Master, which means that you get an increased ability score. You did before, but now you can also take Constitution, and you can reduce bludgeoning, piercing, or slashing damage dealt to you by that attack by an amount equal to a proficiency bonus. So the wording here has changed a bit. Okay, before it was non-magical, now it's any attack, so that's a buff, and it's proficiency bonus, which means it's a nerf until level 5, and it's the same from level 5 to 8, and then it's a buff from there on out. I always did a proficiency bonus anyway, because it's too strong, I think, with 3 points at the first level. So I think this is pretty much the same. Maybe, yeah, it's about the same. It ends up about the same. Maybe a bit better, especially at higher levels, obviously. Inspiring Leader. Before you would get to spend 10 minutes, you can heal level plus charisma. Now you get wisdom and charisma as well. And you can use it after short or long rest to give performance blah 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 2d4 plus proficiency bonus. So more at early levels and less at later levels, and charisma is no longer a necessary part of it. So I think the Inspiring Leader feat is no longer just a feat you only take on a specific type of class. Now you can actually take it on your priest or your wizard, or sorry, not wizard, your cleric, stuff like that, and get good use out of it. So I like this change. I think it's fine. Keen Mind. Before you increase in intelligence score, and then you had some ribbon stuff. You know which way is north. You know the hours left. You can accurately recall anything you've seen or heard within the past month. Every DM stream. Now it increases intelligence score still. You get skill proficiency in one thing, or you gain expertise in one of these other skills. So that's not huge. And then you can take the study action as a bonus action. I don't know, Keen Mind wasn't a great feat before, but I actually kind of liked this flavor, so I would have maybe liked them to preserve this flavor because I have players that take Keen Mind almost on every character just so they can tell me. I would know that because I have Keen Mind, and that's actually kind of fun, even if it also is annoying. So yeah, I think this feat is not very good unless the study action is going to become really good to take as bonus action. I don't think it is. So yeah. Lightly armored, you gain the following armor training: light armor, medium armor, and shield. Okay, so medium armor training is part of light armor. You don't get... This is probably the first feat we're seeing, is aside from epic boons and fighting styles, that don't give +1. Okay, yeah, the heavy armor master. Okay, that as well. So yeah, the first feat, I think, that doesn't give that. But it does give you light armor, medium armor, and shield. So your wizard, first level feat, boom, I'm going to take lightly armored, and now I'm a wizard in medium armor. No more need to jump in and get that fighter level necessarily, for that at least. Hard for me to say. I think this is good. I think it's quite good as a first level feat. At level 4, you have a lot of options. At first level, you don't have that many. I think lightly armored is going to get picked up for some characters. Then we have Mage Slayer, which is an ability score increase. It didn't have that before. You have Concentration Breaker. That's the same as before, where you have creatures have disadvantage on saving throws against, or to maintain their concentration against your attacks. And if you fail an intelligence, wisdom, or charisma saving throw, you can cause yourself to see instead. You can't use this. Okay, long rest. So I kind of like that when a creature within 5 you cast a spell, you can use reaction to make a melee weapon attack against. So I'm kind of sad to see that part of it go. This feature is obviously good, but once per long rest is not a whole lot of times you get to do that. I actually better like the advantage on saving throws against spells cast by creatures within 5 of you, because it sort of fosters a playing style where you get into the face of spellcasters and you're just on them. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of this change, actually. Is it better? Probably, because getting strength or dexterity just makes it a lot better. Then we have medium armor master, so you can increase your strength or dexterity score. That wasn't there before, so that's great. And you can add 3 rather than 2 to your AC if you have a dexterity score of 16 higher. So that is the same. You don't get the no disadvantage on stealth checks, but you get a +1 bonus, so that's obviously better. This is a good feat, I think, for the exact right kind of character that doesn't want to max out strength but want to have 16 strength. Anyway, mounted combatant, you get a +1 to an ability score, dexterity or wisdom and strength. I don't know why wisdom, but yeah. You can make wisdom animal handling checks you have advantages on those that you didn't have before. You have mounted strikes. You have advantage attack rolls any creature within 5 you, and you're at least 1 size smaller than the mount. Okay, that is also the same as before. Leap aside if your mount is so that is the same as this feature, where you can half damage, basically evasion for the mount, and you can use a reaction to force an attack that hits your mount to hit you instead, and that's also the same. So more or less the same. But you also get +1 to an ability score, and you get animal handling checks. So it's just a vast improvement for the mounted combatant feat, and that's fine because it's not a feat you saw a ton of people pick up, at least not in my experience. Then we have Observant. It gives intelligence or wisdom now, and you can choose a skill and you gain proficiency in it, or you gain expertise in it. Insight, investigation, perception. I can see a lot of people picking up perception for this one. And you can take the search action as a bonus action, so you're no longer being able to read lips, and you don't have this passive adjustment to your ability scores. So what I like about this is that you get expertise in passive or in insight, investigation, or perception. That makes sense. I like that. What I don't like is that we no longer get the mouth reading stuff, because that was actually the interesting part of the observant feed. So why not also get that? It's a small ribbon thing, barely used, but when it was used, it was fun because a player could say, "Hey, I actually have observant, so I know what they said," and that's fun. So yeah, not a huge change, but I think it's less fun. Polar Master. Now this is a controversial feat, to say the least, because a lot of melee builds are going to be built on Pole Master. So now Pole Master gives you +1 to your strength score, so that's something. And it also if you attack with a weapon that has the heavy and reach properties, you can use a bonus action to make a melee attack with the opposite of the weapon. I think that's pretty much the same, except that they now specify heavy and reach. Yeah, so that's unchanged. While you're holding a weapon that has the heavy and reach property, you can use your reaction to make one melee attack that enters the reach. So that's also unchanged, except that we have heavy and reach specified here. I'm just making sure that I'm not missing anything. No. So Pole Master is basically the same, except that it's limited a bit. Spears are no longer part of the equation, and you get a +1 to strength. So that's still a very, very good feat. Even better, I'd say, for the build that we'd use for than before, unless I'm missing something here. I don't think I am. Resilient, you increase an ability score. You gain saving throw proficiency with the chosen ability. Important to note here, it's not repeatable. Before, we don't really know, was it repeatable? But it certainly isn't now. So you're not going to get resilient in all your abilities. You're going to get resilient in one. It's possible that that was also the rules before. They're going to take the same feat once, unless it says otherwise, because we had some feats that would tell you can take them multiple times. So that's probably the intention anyway. Now it's just very clear that it's not intended to be repeatable. So rituals are now, as far as I understand, or that's at least so far in the playtest, going to be available to all classes that can cast spells. But now so all this stuff with you get access to ritual stuff, and you get a wizard, you can use wizard spellbook, stuff like that. Instead, you now get an increased ability score, and then you choose 2 spells that are rituals, and you can cast them as your spells, basically. So I think what could be good here is that if you can find some spells that are rituals that are also just powerful, not as rituals, then you can add them to spell list and actually also cast them using your spell slots. So that's pretty significant. And you also get quick ritual, where you can cast a ritual spell and you use the regular casting time instead of the extended time for a ritual without using a spell slot, but you can only do this once per long rest. Okay, so I can see the cases where this is also super useful. But yeah, ritual caster, pretty nice. Probably, depending on the spell list and how spells are worded, could be quite powerful, actually. Sentinel, part of the broken, I'd say, sort of stacking of feats you could do. Sentinel feat is also a controversial feat. Let's see. Now it increases an ability score, so that's obviously good. Immediately after a creature within 5 of you take the disengage action or hits another target other than you in attack, they can make an opportunity. You can make an opportunity attack against that creature. So a lot to unpack here. First off, it's declared that this is an opportunity attack. It was also before with disengaging, but not with this one. This wasn't an opportunity attack. So when a creature hits your ally next to you, the attack you made wasn't actually an opportunity attack, which is important because when you hit a creature with an opportunity attack, the creature's speed becomes 0. That part of the old feat didn't work with this part of the old feat. Now it all works together. Yeah, so mostly this has just been worded better, and it's been combined a bit, and you also get that ability score increase. So all of that is better. What is significant here is actually the wording on Polar Master, because I just realized that you had this other creature provoke an opportunity attack from you when they enter the reach you have with that weapon was part of the Polar Master before, but now it's while you're holding a blah blah blah, you can use reaction to make an 1 melee attack against a creature that enters the reach you have with that weapon. So the reactive strike of Polar Master is no longer an opportunity attack, which means that the Polar Master Sentinel combo, where you can keep creatures out of your range with Sentinel, is gone. They actually fixed that feat stacking that was overpowered by some simple wording stuff that I even missed on the first going through. I still dislike that the Sentinel is just going to straight up stop you when you hit it with an attack. I think it just doesn't make sense why the dragon would be stopped when you hit it with an opportunity attack, for me at least. I've never liked that part of Sentinel feat. I have such a hard time imagining how that looks. So I don't like that it's there, but I think it's nice they fixed this. But again, it's one of the only things martial classes really had to make them powerful in combat, even if it was super cheesy. So I hope that they get something else instead to sort of compensate for these feats being significantly worse. And speaking about feats that were powerful before, I am assuming that Sharpshooter is also nerfed into the ground. Let's see. You now get an ability score increase. Yes, dexterity, your range attacks ignore half cover and 3/4 cover, so that's the same as before. Being within 5 feet of an enemy doesn't impose disadvantage. Attacking long range doesn't. Okay, so what we get now is that you don't get this feature, which is why people took the feat. -5 to attack rolls, +10 to damage. But you also don't have disadvantage firing in close quarters and in long range attacks. So basically never have disadvantage and ignore all cover with range attacks. Is it a good feat? Yes. If you're a ranged character, you want this feat, obviously. But it's not powerful or necessary in the way that Sharpshooter was for damage. And that is a significant nerf, even if this feat is still good. It's not bad feat. This adding 1 dexterity to it and also close quarters, that really compensates a lot, but it doesn't give you that damage output that the old Sharpshooter fit did. So it is a nerf. And then we have Shieldmaster, which is now giving you a +1 to strength, so it didn't do that before. You have a shield bash. If you attack a creature, attack action, hit it with a melee weapon, you can bash the target with your shield if it's equipped, forcing target to make a string. Knock the target prone or push it back 5 feet. So I think that's basically the same. Now you have to do it after you hit with the melee weapon, which is clearly stated. It wasn't before. And you have this saving throw thingy, whereas I'm not entirely sure where the shove action is right now in 1D&D. So maybe that is an improvement. It's a better shove, perhaps. That depends on how the shove looks. The shove rules are going to end up. You can only use this benefit once. So what is important to note here is that I think we are not getting the word bonus action anywhere. So that is the huge thing here, not a bonus action. It doesn't take up your bonus action, which of course is powerful. Makes it a lot better, a lot more useful with stuff that would use your bonus action. And basically just gave you evasion with it. Yeah. So yeah, it's a good feat. I kind of like the changes they've made here. Not overly huge change, but adding just that +1 to strength obviously makes it just a better feat, straight up. Skulker. Increased dexterity by 1, blindside, to a range of 10 feet. That is huge. That is great. Also makes sense why the rogue doesn't get this anymore if you're going to put it on Skulker, because Skulker is such a rogue feat to take. Then you have Fog of War. You have advances and anti-dexterity still check you make as part of the hide action during combat. Yeah, sure. Kind of, because the Thief, for example, would already get this, so there's some overlap here that I don't necessarily like. But yeah, Sniper, if you make an attack roll while hidden and the roll misses, making the attack roll doesn't end the hit condition on you. That's the same as before. Okay, so it's become more mechanical, and I like that, because this wording was just so confusing, stuff like that. So in this way, it's better in most cases, I'd say, and you also get this dexterity score improvement. I kind of like this feat. I think it's a good feat. Then we have Speedster, which is a fun way to ride mobile, which I assume this feat is. But let's see. You can increase your dexterity or constitution score by 1. Your speed increases by 10 feet. That's a lot. And when you take dex action on turn, difficult terrain doesn't cost you extra movement. So that is basically mobile, except for the good feature where you don't provoke opportunity attacks when you hit a creature with an attack. And instead you get that ability score increase. So that's again some cheesy running around builds took advantage of getting to run away from a target you hit. So they've sort of killed that by not having that in there anymore. And then we have Spell Sniper, increase your intelligence, wisdom, or charisma score by 1 to maximum 20. Your attack rolls for spells ignore half cover and 3/4 cover. Casting melee, being within 5 feet of a minute. When you cast a spell at a range of, you can increase the spell's range by 60 feet. Okay, so when you Your ranged spell attacks ignore half cover and 3/4 cover. That's the same. You learn one cantrip that requires that's gone, so you don't get that extra cantrip. You can't just take Eldritch Blast, which is unfortunate for those builds, but yeah. And you don't have disadvantage on attack rolls with spells, so they took the the crossbow expert thingy and put it in here, which makes sense again. And then you have an increased range where you can take an attack roll, a spell attack, and increase the range by 60 feet instead of doubling it, which makes sense because before you could have some cases where you had a 5 feet range on a spell with an attack roll, and then you could make that 10 feet, and could you do this for something that was a touch, stuff like that. In this way, it's just, if it has a 10 feet range, you can increase that by 60 feet. So that makes sense, and you get that ability score increase. Yeah, I like this. Obviously, this one going away where you get a cantrip makes it a lot less worse, but it functions more as intended this way because it wasn't ever going to be, I think the intention wasn't that you took your only attack roll spell, Eldritch Blast, from this and then got the other stuff. It was more like, if you have Eldritch Blast, you're going to make Eldritch Blast better and stuff like Eldritch Blast. Warcaster, also one of the more popular feats, and let's see, you get Intelligence, Wisdom, Charisma, so that's good. You have advantage on Constitution saving throws that make to maintain your concentration. That's the same. When a creature provokes, except that it now also does it when it's not just damage, but everything. When a creature provokes an opportunity attack from you, you can use reaction to cast a spell. The spell must have cast in type 1 action and must target only that creature. Yep, that's the same, I think. And somatic components, you can perform the somatic component. So it's basically the same. You just also get +1 to your Intelligence, Wisdom, Charisma score. So it's going to heavily depend on what are reaction spells. So is Booming Blade still in there? Is it a spell that would apply to this? That's important. Anyways, Warcaster is not a worse feat unless perhaps maybe in some combos. Then we have Weapon Training, which I think replaces Weapon Master, and you gain Martial Weapon Proficiency and you increase your Strength or Dexterity score by 1. So yeah, good feat to get if you don't have Martial Weapon Proficiency and you want it. And I can see some classes want that, especially if something like the Bard now, which only has Simple Weapon Proficiency, want to get that Martial Weapon Proficiency. You take Weapon Training and you also get to increase your Dexterity, for example. So yeah, that's the feat from the new 1D&D playtest. I'd say that overall I'm happy with a lot of the changes. I'm sort of tentative about the changes to Sharpshooter, Great Weapon Master, Polearm Master, these feats, because I'm still seeing some of them being vastly more powerful than other options, but I'm also seeing that especially Great Weapon Master and Sharpshooter being just killed, at least in terms of what the feats were before, is something that is very, very punishing to martial classes, which are already, in my opinion, behind spellcasting classes. So I really, really want martial classes to get a huge buff, and I didn't see that buff necessarily for at least a rogue here, which could have been a sharpshooter user before. Not the primary sharpshooter user before, because you probably want more attacks when you're a sharpshooter. But still, I hope that martial classes get something to compensate for not being able to pick up these feats anymore. Besides that, epic boon feats, those really need some retooling. They are all over the place, and I'm kind of disappointed, maybe, and a bit afraid that we're getting something that is so poorly balanced, where you have epic boon of dimensional travel in the same discussion as epic boon of recovery or fortitude. That to me just makes zero sense, and I think it's not a good sign necessarily. And I'm seeing a lot of good signs here, I should say. I'm seeing a lot of good stuff being included here. So this is maybe just a slip-off of sorts, but I hope it's something that we'll see fixed. Beyond that, I still see a lot of feats that are still more powerful than the other options, comparable options. So not necessarily sure that the balance is quite there, but I think that a lot of the feats that would normally just never be picked have been given a bit more to do, been made a bit more viable. So overall, good signs for the less popular feats out there. There are still some dots, obviously, but it's not terrible. I think it's an improvement across the board. So yeah, that's my thoughts on the new 1D&D Unearthed Arcana playtest Feats, and I'll be making more videos from this playtest. We'll be going over the rules glossary as well. There's a lot to uncover there, and we've also made videos on the classes that were in this playtest. If you want to watch all that, there's a playlist you can watch, and you can also subscribe to the channel. But beyond that, there's not a whole lot left to say, except thank you so much for watching, and I hope that I'll see you in the next video.